Hey there, Aquarius. How you doing? So this is your forecast, taking you on a 2-week tour of the next moon phase. This is the waning moon phase, starting from the full moon in Libra on the 13th of April, all the way through to the 27th of April with the new moon in Taurus. So this is a forecast, a generic forecast for you, Aquarius, about how to handle all of those energies in the best way that you can. If you're new to this channel, hi, my name's Louisa Tanner Munson, and this is Feel Good Astrology. And my goal here is to create astrology that gives you a sense of release, a sense of clarity, freedom, and a sense that you're not sort of like hemmed in with the astrology right now, but that you have a sense of empowerment, that you can work with the planetary flows in a way to find relief and find a sense of growth. If you've been here before, then welcome back. I love the fact that you've come back, and yeah, I'm very pleased that you've joined me once again. Anyway, let's bring up my charts, or your charts, for this particular period. Let's have a quick look at what's going on. So the first thing that I want to just kind of set the scene with, and that is that we are going through the waning moon forecast. Okay, so we're going from the full moon in Libra, all the way through to the new moon in Taurus. Now, you'll see, and you can really clearly see it here, we're starting with full illumination of emotions. Like the moon is very much about our emotions, our psyche, our inner child. And so everything is on display. Everything is loud and clear. You know, the life that we've been working towards, we're really seeing the results of. And, you know, if you're seeing results around the time of the full moon that you don't really like, you know, it's important to check out what intentions you've been sowing, what seeds you've been sowing, what have you been saying to yourself, what are your inner beliefs and things like that. Because between the full moon to the new moon, we're going through a period of release. You know, the whole idea is to go into a period of letting go of everything that is too much, everything that's too loud, everything that's not really you after all. And of course, the full moon shows us everything in all of its glory. And that's the thing that gives us the choice to recognize, hey, I don't really want this, you know, bloody hell, this felt like too much. No, I don't need that. And so in the first week, this is the third quarter, this is like the midpoint between the full moon and the new moon 2 weeks later. So in this first week, you're consciously saying, right, I see this, don't want it. This isn't for me on reflection. And so you're consciously easing away from things, letting things go, letting things settle. And it's quite an active process. And then as you're coming into the last week of this waning moon forecast, things are more subtle. You know, there's not as much illumination. In fact, we're going into the darkness. You know, we are coming to a time where there's a mystery. Like, we're not entirely sure what we're letting go of, but there is a sense of faith and trust and hope that you're releasing the things that you think you need to release. And then as you're coming up to the new moon, that's the time to really clear the slates, really clean your environment, really let go of everything, go into surrender, go into peace. To me, this is this is a choice point. The new moon, it's giving us a new lunar cycle. It's giving us the choice to plant a new seed and to watch what happens over the particular month or over a series of months. You know, if this particular new moon is happening in your chart in a really strong place, then this will really show up, and this will, you know, give you lots of new options. And yeah, I mean, for this is on one of my angles this month, so this looks like quite an important one. So where you see that the new moon is happening in a really important place, it's time to really clear the decks, really let go of things and create a space for something new and wonderful to come in. But let's have a look more on a diary basis so we can start to flesh this out. And in a minute, I'll bring up the 3 charts I've selected for you, Aquarius, to pace us through this time. So I often find looking in terms of a diary quite helpful because I can kind of really see it in my mind's eye. So we've got the moon in Libra on Sunday, the 13th of April. The new moon in Taurus is 2 weeks later, exactly on the 27th. And then the midpoint is actually happening on the Monday. That's the third quarter. It's where it goes from light and into the dark, into the intuition and into the mystery of all the patterns. Now you'll see, and I haven't listed all of the different things that are happening in this week ahead. I've only mentioned the oppositions, the conjunctions, the trines, and the squares between planets, not including the moon. I'm only mentioning really the moon at the time of the full moon and the new moon. That's because the moon moves so fast that it just creates a slight lift, but the full and the new moon are sufficiently big to mention. But we've got like these important movements in this first week and very little in the second week. So we can automatically see that the first week is the most important one, the one where more is happening. So, this first week, it starts with the full moon in Libra. And also on that day, Venus is going direct. Now, Venus has been retrograde for quite some time. She goes retrograde for around 44 days or 40 nights, around that 40 and a little bit more. And she goes retrograde every 18 months or so. So it's not a real sort of common thing, but she puts us in a bit of a spin. She often has us rethinking all of our connections, reevaluating how we're being in our relationships, and really revaluing a lot of different aspects of our life. So having her going forward at the start of this 2-week period is really good. It's getting us off to a really good start. But I want to comment a little bit more about that because, in fact, from the 6th of December last year, we've pretty much had one of, or sometimes two, of the personal planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. They've all been retrograde. So we had Mars retrograde on the 6th. In fact, we also already had Mercury retrograde. And then Mars was just retrograde right the way through January, right the way through to, I think, was it the 23rd or the 27th of February? He was retrograde for quite some time. And then we had a little bit of a gap and we're like, oh, phew, that's good. Mars isn't retrograde anymore. And then Venus went retrograde. And then she went retrograde, and then Mercury went retrograde. Now Mercury is direct, Mars is direct, and finally Venus is direct. So, these Mars, Mercury, Venus retrogrades, they really work on our persona. They really work on our personality and the real intimate details of our life. So, Mars is very much about our vitality and how healthy we feel. Mercury on our mind and the way we're thinking, and Venus on how we're feeling and relating to things. So it's really done a big job on us, really, since the 6th of December. I think when Mars went retrograde, that was a real sort of pinnacle of this energy. This really got it going. So I really love that we're finally out of these retrogrades, and it feels like we're getting a clear stretch to really remember who we are. And then the next day, Saturn is in a conjunction with the North Node on the 14th. Now, Saturn is a hard taskmaster, and he really shows us where we haven't been paying attention, especially with the North Node. We're really reminded, who are we, what we're doing, where's our karmic path leading us, and have we done everything? So if you're aware already that there's some loose ends that you need to pick up on, do them now. Like whenever the Saturn and the North Node come together, they are in a conjunction for quite a while. This isn't just a one-day thing. This is just the moment where it's exact. But there is a real sort of energy right now to pick up on all of those unattended to tasks and to really put some effort in. And anything that you're investing in yourself right now is likely to pay dividends. So this is going to work for you. This is going to help you out. And then a few days later, and I really like this run from Wednesday the 16th to Saturday the 19th. So we've got Mercury going into Aries. That's significant. That's the sign Mercury was in when he last went retrograde. And so there is this feeling that we're starting to move forwards again. He's not quite out of the retrograde shadow, but It feels like our thinking, our communication is a lot more positive. We're about to take action. We're a lot more sassy. We're a lot more independent in our thinking. We're not relying on other people so much. So there's this sense that we are intellectual leaders in our own right. We're leading ourselves forwards. I love that. On the 17th, Mercury makes a conjunction to Neptune. This is the first Mercury in Neptune conjunction in the sign of Aries. And this is where Mercury and Neptune are going to come into conjunctions over the next 14-year period. So this is the very first. This is opening us up to a new sense of creativity in our mind and taking us on a new creative journey. So I like this opportunity. This is a good day for a really strong brainstorm. On Friday the 18th, Mars is going into Leo. Again, this is another move forwards for us. You know, Mars is still in the retrograde shadow, won't be fully like moving forwards until the 2nd of May. So it's quite some time, you know, that Mars went retrograde on the 6th of December and then isn't fully out of it and out of the shadow until the 2nd of May. But trust me, as Mars goes into Leo, you will start to feel much better. Our energy levels are coming back. We are feeling a lot more creative. Like Leo is a very creative and person-centered sign, self-centered. I don't mean self-centered in like a selfish way, but, you know, we are able to look at ourselves and think, wow, I'm going to put some energy into that, you know. So Mars going into Leo is going to help us to feel more vital in ourselves and to open up to the playfulness of being us. So I love that. That's a huge leap forwards. And then on Saturday the 19th, the Sun moves into Taurus, and Mars has a lovely trine with Neptune. So it's lovely, you know, Mercury in a conjunction to Neptune, Mars in a trine to Neptune. Neptune is making some nice aspects with these personal planets. So yeah, the Neptune energy is great. We're starting to get a feel for what Neptune in Aries feels like. And, you know, Mars trine Neptune, I think, is bringing out the spiritual leader in all of us. You know, if you have a dream of developing your spirituality, if you have a dream of being seen and taking responsibility and dreaming something much bigger for yourself, then this is a really great aspect. And then that's followed by Venus in a conjunction to the North Node on the 20th. And so we're really connecting into our karmic journey at a heart level. It's really strong. And then we're coming into the second week. And this is where the energy starts to change a little bit. So there's a couple of big things going on. And the first one is Sun in a square to Mars. This is part of a big picture because, as you'll see when we look in the charts in a minute, really the Sun and Mars and Pluto are in a T-square pretty much the whole time of this 2-week period. But this is when the Sun and Mars are in an exact square. And so there's a feeling of frustration and a feeling of really wanting to move forwards. And yet there's, you know, we're almost working a bit too fast for our own persona, for our own personality. And so there's a bit of a balancing act going on. And then a couple of days later, the Sun makes a square to Pluto, the exact square to Pluto. Again, another massive energy that's going on. And then later on, we've got Venus in a conjunction with Saturn. Now, this has happened before. Venus is very much about love and flow, and Saturn is about respectability and accountability. And so I really see that this is, I think this is actually quite helpful. I don't want to demonize Venus and Saturn in a conjunction together. I mean, Saturn can be quite sobering, so we might be a little cooler in how we're relating to people, but it's also a time when we can come together and create arrangements and agreements and like shake each other's hand and look into each other's eyes and find a balance. So I think we're able to find balance even when the Sun and Moon and Pluto, sorry, the Sun and Mars and Pluto are in a T-square, which leads me up to the last bit, the new moon in Taurus. Just before that happens, Mars goes into the exact opposition with Pluto. Now, I'm going to show you the charts in a second, but just before I do, I just want to thank everyone that supports this channel, Feel Good Astrology. thank you so much, whether you're a historical supporter or you're supporting me right now, or whether you're a member of the Feel Good Astrology membership. I love you. You make this possible. You keep me buoyant and send me messages and stuff. Thank you so much, everyone. And if you want to support the channel as well, you can become a member or you can donate. There's a little button in the notes below this video with Ko-fi.com link. You can buy me a coffee, basically. So it's entirely up to you. But thank you to everyone that sort of has positive feelings about this channel. It's all very, very helpful. Anyway, let's bring on those charts. So I've got 3 charts for this period. So the first one is the full moon in Libra chart, and this is how it's looking in your birth chart. Now, this is pretty big because this is a great big flipping square, isn't it? Slightly wonky square, but it appears to be working in your first house, your 6th house, your 3rd and 9th houses. So this is pretty big. We've got a second chart for the midpoint between the 2 weeks. And then you'll see that the emphasis is between the 1st, the 7th and the 4th houses. And you really can see this T-square going on there that I was talking about before. And then finally, at the time of the new moon in Taurus, we've still got this T-square between the sun, now the moon, and Pluto here, and Mars. Now, one thing to notice is the moon is involved in all of these. So here the moon and the sun are together in the T-square. At the time of the halfway point, the moon and Pluto are together, and the sun and Mars are in the T-square. And then in the original, the moon and sun are in opposition. So there is this very, very strong feeling. It's always throughout this time affecting your first house, which is about your body, your personality, what people see about you, like your persona, what you stand for. And so this is a deeply transformative time for you, Aquarius. And, in the first week, it's really working on the 3rd and the 9th houses, which I'll explain in a minute. And the 6th. The 6th is easy enough. Mars in the 6th is really encouraging you to work, and to really change your life and to get some good habits in. Really showing you that where you may have hidden from change and being a bit shy around change, Mars has really been trying to get you to work really in quite a practical and forthright way. Mars is in a great relationship to Venus, Saturn, the North Node in your 2nd house. So I think there is this feeling that like your work and your ability to earn money are kind of fired up. And I will talk more about that in the career and ambition forecast if you're interested in that. But, in this first week in particular, there's this high emphasis on working. And then as we get to this midway point, Mars is coming into the 7th house and Pluto in the 1st. And this, I think, is bringing up a sense of tension between how you want to be and how you want to be moving forwards and what you think that might mean. And then the very real reaction that the people in your relationships are having to your changes. Now, because this is in such an important place, I want to say, Mars and Pluto go into opposition every couple of years because Mars has around a 2-year sort of cycle. And so, he will come into a conjunction with Pluto, a square and a square here, but he will always come into an opposition every couple of years. Now that Pluto's in the sign of Aquarius, which is your 1st house, using this technique, this whole sign charting mechanism, Mars is always, when he's in opposition to Pluto for the next 20 years, he's always going to be in your 7th house. So the opposition that this is presenting is as you are being yourself and being quite strong, like Pluto in the 1st house brings out a lot of strength. And it brings out, I think, a sense of, I can do this and you're not going to stop me. I've had Pluto go through my first house, and it coincided with my teen years, and my parents reassure me that I was absolutely bloody minded. But Pluto in the first really shows where you absolutely get your needs met. You make sure that things go in the way that you want, and you kind of are a bit fearless about it. And of course, Mars, when he comes through the seventh, shows the irritation and anger and sometimes bad attitudes of the people in your life. And it also shows that they might be coming very, very strong as well, and that there might be a bit of a power balance. So from your perspective as an Aquarian, and you might be looking at this because you've got an Aquarian rising or sun. That's, this works for both of you. But I think it's important to decide right now how you might handle people that are rejecting the you that you're becoming, or who appear to challenge your authority or challenge the changes you're going through. How might you find peace? How might you find a balance point on that? Now, you'd have got a little bit of a sense of it around the 3rd of November last year, but that was more around your work. People were noticing changes in the way you were being, and so it might have been affecting your work and your colleagues. And then in January, on the 3rd of January, that was also with Mars in the sign of Leo. So you'd have got a sense of what it was like to feel slightly at odds with the people in your actual personal life. This is the last opposition between Pluto and Mars. They don't normally occur in like 3 goes. Normally they're done and dusted in a 2-week period. So you'll be very relieved to get rid of this by the time the new moon comes along. And indeed, at the time of the new moon, this is when it's exact. Thereafter, Mars is just going to be moving on his way out of this opposition, and there will be a sense of relief about being yourself and being challenged about being yourself. So what I would recommend you might choose to do is remind yourself what was happening around the 3rd of January when the last one was happening. What did you learn about that? What was difficult in your relationships? And then also notice what happens this time. Do you feel challenged? How do you handle it? Did it work? What was the fallout? And then make some notes and maybe even check ahead. I mean, I probably will talk about this in a separate video at some point, because I do think I've been experiencing this myself. I've got Scorpio rising, people with a really strong Scorpio energy, and both Pluto and Mars rule your career. So it's pretty strong for you in your chart in terms of your career. And again, I'll be talking about that in the career and ambition forecast. But Pluto and Mars, when they go in opposition, they create quite a strong set of resistances. And I am really, really looking forward to this energy easing off. Really, truly. It's felt very, very challenging. So I think things are going to straighten up for you in terms of your relationships as these guys come out of their opposition. I think it's going to be a real godsend for you. Anyway, I went on a bit of a ramble there because there's something else that I think is more important to talk about, and that is this conjunction between Chiron and the Sun on the day of the full moon. Now, this reminds me of what was going on in April 2024, specifically April the 8th. On April the 8th last year, we had the Sun, the Moon, and Chiron in an exact conjunction in this part of your chart. And so it was a solar eclipse, really, really strong, biting eclipse. And so what I want to say is, what was going on for you around the 8th of April? What challenges were you facing in terms of how you felt in your community, in terms of how you felt, do you feel like you belong? Do you feel like you're heard and understood and that you're part of something? Anywhere where you feel pain in terms of belonging and feeling part of something, especially residual pain, that's still ongoing, is likely to come up. And you'll be reminded of it around the time of this full moon in Libra. The moon is really encouraging you to kind of move out of the the pain, like whatever pain conversation you're having with yourself, like, oh, I don't fit in, oh, everyone hates me, or whatever it is that's going on for you in your life. The moon is kind of saying, enough. You can have a bigger view. The moon is saying you need to get out a bit more. You need to kind of spread your wings. You need to feel that sense of freedom. And I think that sense of freedom and yearning is really growing in you around the time of this full moon in Libra. Now, the moon is also going to be in a square to Mars coming into this full moon, and is coming into a square with Pluto as the moon exits this full moon. And so that's why I've put it into this grand square formation. But the moon here, is also showing us that, yes, there's this desire to escape, and there's this desire to, experience a sense of freedom. And yet there's this tension. I must work, I must do this in my house, and I've got all this stuff to do. And then Pluto in the first, it's like, I can't. It's not part of the life plan. It's not part of what I need to do. So what I would say around the time of the full moon, anywhere where you've decided who you're going to be in life and what that means and how much work you need to do to make that work, can you let go of those judgments that you've created for yourself, because they're not creating enough freedom for you or enough possibilities? So anywhere where you say, I must, I should, I ought, I shall, I will, I'm going to do it, and don't try and stop me. Anywhere where you're being so forceful with yourself, around the time of the full moon, give yourself permission just for a moment to be yourself. Give yourself some freedom. Like, really, truly let yourself off your leash, because all the time you're keeping yourself in this tight space, it's creating a sense of not fitting in. It's perpetuating this sense of you're only okay when you do this and within this sort of time frame or kind of parameters. So give yourself space to be yourself, room to breathe, please. Of course, once the full moon is gone, you can start controlling yourself again if you want to. But you might actually learn that, yeah, it's good to have guidelines, but when you're controlling yourself and beating yourself up, it really doesn't help anyone. Now, this just reminds me of something I saw on Facebook this morning. I'm just going to share this meme. 1 second. Okay, so this meme says, if being hard on yourself worked, it would have worked by now. Boom. I love that so much, because that really does speak volumes to me. This full moon, and in particular with Pluto going through your first house, and it's going to be doing that for not 20 years now, 19 and almost a half years. This is going to be showing you like a side of you where you are likely to be quite hard on yourself and quite forceful and be very dynamic. You're going to be really pushing yourself. And you want to find a new way around that. The urge to control your environment and to control what can reach you and whatnot. I understand that. I understand that you want to make yourself safe. And I understand that you want to feel immense and strong in your personality. And there needs to be some kind of fail-safe that you don't bully yourself. Pluto is a bully. And often it's so much easier if you can just surrender and let that bully in you just kind of melt away. So I wonder what would happen if you could surrender to yourself around the time of this full moon and allow yourself some pleasure, some time, some freedoms, even if they don't really make practical sense. Just wondering. Anyway, let's have a look. So midway through this, the moon is coming into your first house. That is indeed a time when things are likely to get quite emotional. You're likely to feel really, really strong in your emotions. And like I said, Mars has just gone into the sign of Leo. That's possibly bringing in this sense of aggravation with the people in your life, that they might be a little bit too forceful. They might be giving you a bit of feedback, like quite strong feedback. And so to me, it feels a bit like a battle of wills. And with the sun in the fourth house as well, so the first, the fourth, the seventh houses. So this is you, this is the people you share your life with, and this is your home, all at odds with each other. So it's definitely a time when you need to find a way to relax a little bit and to chill out and to not. Again, if you're being hard on yourself, it would have worked by now. If it really was good for you, it would have worked right now, and being hard on yourself. Like, also, when you're routinely hard on yourself, and I share this with you because I'm routinely hard on myself, really hard. That's why I'm sharing it, because that it really hit home when I read that. When you're hard on yourself, even if you pretend otherwise, and believe me, I do pretend otherwise. I pretend, yeah, I'm really cool with people being themselves. But when I really have high expectations for myself, I have high expectations for the people in my life too. And when they don't meet them, I mean, I know there are some people that will be really, they'll really cuss their family and friends, because they don't meet their expectations. I don't do that. I show them that I love and accept them, but deep down, how can I? If the very levels that I'm judging myself by, you know, there's some. It's incongruous, isn't it? We're not really being true to ourselves, and so this is the big lesson for me. And I'm sure this will be one of the big lessons for you as you experience Pluto through your first house, where you're hard on yourself. You are projecting, whether you like it or not, at some level, you're projecting the hardness you have for yourself onto other people, and most likely getting disappointed with what they're about and how they're being. And of course, that doesn't allow for much freedom. It doesn't give the people in your life much freedom, and it doesn't give you freedom either. So again, if you could surrender to yourself and surrender the ideas that you have about how other people need to be, I think that will create for a lot more harmony in your life, and it will probably create a much stronger and deeper transformation for you. So yeah, that's my wisdom for whatever it's worth. Yeah, so this is a real sort of like tight hotbed. Now, there are some really great things going on as well. There's these amazing sextiles going on. Uranus is a bit of a I think Uranus is a useful planet in this 2-week period, because Uranus is in a sextile with Mars, showing this spontaneity that can keep things going and can really help heal. Uranus is in a lovely sextile with Venus and Saturn and North Node and Neptune and Mercury. Again, spontaneity and excitement and fun can really, really help things move along. And then Jupiter and Chiron are also in a sextile during this time. So, there is this possibility that when you are exploring generosity and exploring expansion, which is Jupiter, there is this possibility to heal. So Pluto is a transformer, but can sometimes contract how we're feeling with people. It can contract things down. It can really push in a really deep and kind of Pluto at some level is the god of the underworld, and so if you think of death and dying, that's Pluto. So you can go through this sort of contracting death experience, whereas Jupiter is kind of opening up your lungs and breathing in the life. And so Pluto here can be quite contracting and can really force us into these situations where we feel like we're going to die, but actually it's through the death of what we're holding in our ego that we get the freedom. So I think Jupiter and Chiron are very, very healing here. It's almost like an antidote to being, to putting us on a route of killing ourselves with our judgments, and with our very, very strong ideas. And then as we're coming up to the new moon, we're really, really shifting. And this last shift in this last week, it's all real personal stuff that's shifting, in terms of who you are, who's in your family, who's in your home, and how you're relating to your loved ones. So it's real instinctual stuff, tough stuff. But as you're coming in for this new moon, I really think it's going to create a new possibility for home. I think there's going to be a new possibility for openness. And that's why I said at the start, the sooner you can get used to what this Pluto and Mars opposition means to you, the sooner you can like work out a strategy of how it might work better next time, and the time after that, and the time after that. There's going to be another 10 of them or 9 of them whilst Pluto is in the sign of Aquarius. So it would be very helpful to get a handle on those, because they are going to affect your personal life. So I really think you're going through this 2-week period. It's really helping you to see what it means to be in relationship to others, and what you might need to shift, what you might need to relax on, and how you can set a whole new theme in this next new moon cycle, from the 27th of April. Now, I will be talking about this in the relationship forecast, the relationship and connection forecast. So, this is a really, really big time for you. And that really brings me to the end of what I'm sharing, because, if you want to, I do the relationship and connections forecast and also the career and ambition forecast every 2 weeks at the time of the new moon and at the time of the full moon, or something equivalent to those. And I also host a complimentary community hangout each month as well. And so if you are wanting to check in with the relationship and connections forecast or the career and ambition one, then why not consider joining my membership? So you can go to www.school.com/feelgoodastrology. It's $22 a month. You also get 1 week free trial, so you could give it a go. But there are other benefits, So I think some people do just stop by for the forecast, because it adds a real strong sort of coding onto this general one, and every 2 weeks, you're getting a lot more over the course of the month. That's an extra 45 minutes worth of forecast time from me. And also there's a chance to hang out. So each time we have a hangout, we discuss what's going on astrologically. I speak to my members. I say, what would you like to talk about? There's a place where you can post your ideas, and we get together and we meet. So that might be something that really works for you, especially if you're learning astrology at the moment. I haven't actually added on, but from next month, I'm going to start teaching astrology from scratch. So if this has whet your appetite and you're a newbie to astrology, you can join the classes and take it from there. But there's also, if you're considering getting a consultation or attending a webinar, there's some really big discounts. So if that is something that appeals to you, then please do give it a try. Of course, it also helps to support my channel as well. So, and this just like shows you part of the timeline, of where I post the forecast. So you can just see it's very much like Facebook or, any membership platform, but school.com is where I'm hosting it, and it's really simple and easy to use. So there you go. I hope you have a lovely 2-week period. Hope it goes beautifully for you. And if you want to get in touch or book a reading with me, or consider membership, all of the details are below in the notes. But anyway, loads of love. Hope to catch you another time. Bye for now.